Welcome back to Minecraft. In our modern world, a world of endless noise and relentless distraction, our minds are pulled in 1,000 different directions. We are tethered to screens, haunted by yesterday's regrets, and anxious about a future that never seems to arrive. Amidst this chaos, a timeless question echoes through the chambers of our being. How do we find true peace? How do we live a life of integrity, freedom, and profound fulfillment, unshaken by the storms that rage around us? Today on Minecraft, we are embarking on a journey not to a distant land, but to a distant time and deep within ourselves. We travel back to 17th century Japan to learn from one of history's most extraordinary figures, an undefeated swordsman, a master artist, and a profound philosopher. His name was Miyamoto Musashi, and the legacy he left behind is not just the legend of his duels, but a spiritual last will and testament, a guide for anyone seeking their own path. It is called the Dokkodo, the path of walking alone. This is more than just a list of 21 rules. It is a map into the vast territory of the self, an art of living forged in blood, sweat, and enlightenment. It was written by a man who stood at the pinnacle of fame and violence, only to realize that the greatest battle is not fought against an external foe, but against the ego within. In this episode, we will not merely read these 21 precepts. We will meditate on them, dissect them, and discover how to apply their ancient wisdom to our lives in the 21st century. Join us as we explore the path of walking alone, not to become lonely, but to discover an unshakable inner strength, a radical spiritual freedom, and the deepest possible sense of peace. The first principle is the very bedrock upon which the entire Dokkodo is built. Accept everything just the way it is. This precept resonates with the ancient Stoic concept of amor fati, a love of one's fate. It's not a passive resignation, but a powerful, proactive embrace of reality in its entirety. Musashi, a man whose life was defined by imposing his will, understood that true strength lies not in changing the unchangeable, but in mastering one's response to it. Our suffering rarely comes from external events themselves. It arises from the story we tell ourselves about those events. A missed promotion is not just a missed promotion. It becomes a narrative of failure, injustice, and personal inadequacy. We fight this reality, replaying it in our minds, fueling it with anger and blame. This internal war is exhausting. Acceptance in this context is the act of dropping the story. It is looking at the situation with clear eyes and acknowledging the facts without the emotional charge. I did not get the promotion. Full stop. This doesn't mean you can't feel disappointment. You feel it, you acknowledge it, but you don't build a monument to it. In our hyper-curated digital world, this practice is an act of rebellion. We are conditioned to constantly compare our raw, uncut reality with the polished highlight reels of others, creating a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. To practice acceptance, therefore, is to reclaim your own life. Start by noticing the small resistances throughout your day. The irritation at a slow driver, the annoyance at a sudden rain shower. In these moments, instead of tensing up, consciously relax your body and mind. Acknowledge the reality of the situation. This small practice builds the mental muscle for accepting the larger, more challenging realities life will inevitably present. It is the first step from being a victim of circumstance to becoming a master of your inner world. From this foundation of acceptance, we move to the second principle. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. This is a profound exploration of the nature of happiness. Our culture often conflates pleasure with joy, but they are fundamentally different. Pleasure is a transaction. It's a temporary high we get from an external stimulus, a sugary drink, a social media like, a new purchase. It operates on the brain's dopamine system, creating a cycle of craving and reward that can easily lead to addiction and emptiness. The high fades, and we are left needing another, often stronger hit to feel the same level of satisfaction. This is the hedonic treadmill. Joy, on the other hand, is not a transaction. It is a state of being. It arises from within. It is the quiet fulfillment that comes from overcoming a challenge, the deep connection felt in a meaningful conversation, the sense of purpose derived from using your skills in service of something larger than yourself. Musashi is not advocating for a life devoid of enjoyment. He is warning against making the acquisition of pleasure the primary driver of your life. When you do that, You become a slave to external validation and sensory input. The practice is to become a connoisseur of your own experiences. After an activity, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, did that provide fleeting pleasure or lasting joy? Do I feel more energized or more depleted? Begin to intentionally shift your time and energy towards activities that cultivate joy. This might mean choosing to struggle through learning a new instrument instead of binge watching a show, or opting for a hike in nature over a shopping spree. It's about choosing to build your own inner well of fulfillment rather than constantly trying to fill a leaky bucket with external pleasures. This leads us to the third principle, a masterclass in emotional regulation. Do not, under any circumstances, depend on a partial feeling. A partial feeling is an emotional snapshot, a flash of anger, a surge of infatuation, a wave of fear. These feelings are real, but they are not the whole truth. They are like looking at a vast landscape through a keyhole. When we make decisions from this limited perspective, we are acting on incomplete data. Think of a time you sent an email in anger. In that moment, the anger felt all-consuming and completely justified. But an hour later, with a cooler head, you likely saw other perspectives. The stress the other person might be under, the ambiguity in their words, your own role in the misunderstanding. The anger was a partial feeling. Musashi, whose life depended on seeing the whole battlefield, knew that acting on such impulses was a fatal error. The practical application of this is to cultivate the habit of the sacred pause. When a strong emotion arises, learn to create a space between the feeling and your reaction. You can do this by focusing on your breath, feeling your feet on the ground, or simply telling yourself, I am feeling anger, but I do not have to act on it right now. This pause is not about suppressing the emotion. It's about observing it without judgment. You allow the wave to rise, crest, and eventually fall without being swept away by it. From that place of calm observation, you can then choose a response that is aligned with your values and long-term goals, rather than being a slave to a momentary emotional storm. The fourth principle offers a profound lesson in perspective. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. In a culture that often celebrates self-promotion and personal branding, this advice seems counterintuitive. But Musashi is not advocating for low self-esteem. He is pointing to the liberation that comes from decentering the ego. The ego is the part of us that is perpetually obsessed with its own story. Am I smart enough? Am I successful enough? What do they think of me? This constant self-monitoring is a tremendous source of anxiety and suffering. To think lightly of yourself is to recognize that you are not the main character in everyone else's movie. It is to let go of the need to constantly manage your image and defend your importance. When you do this, an incredible amount of energy is freed up. This liberated energy can then be directed outwards to think deeply of the world. You begin to notice the intricate beauty of a leaf, the complex emotions in a friend's voice, the vast, interconnected web of life of which you are a part. This shift from self-obsession to world consciousness is the antidote to narcissism and the gateway to empathy, wonder, and a sense of belonging. The practice can be as simple as spending time in nature without your phone, truly observing your surroundings. Or it can be practicing deep listening, where the goal is not to formulate your reply, but to fully understand the other person's reality. It's about recognizing that you are a single, unique note in a grand cosmic symphony. This brings us to the fifth, and perhaps one of the most challenging principles. Be detached from desire your whole life long. This is often misinterpreted as a call to become a passionless ascetic. But Musashi is speaking of detachment, which is very different from apathy or renunciation. Desire, at its core, is a mental state that says, my happiness is located in the future, contingent upon acquiring something I currently lack. This framework guarantees a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. The great irony, as modern psychology has confirmed with the concept of the hedonic treadmill, is that achieving a desire rarely brings lasting happiness. The goalpost simply moves. To be detached is not to stop having goals or ambitions. It is to uncouple your sense of well-being from the outcome. You can pour your heart and soul into a project, but you find the reward in the process itself, in the learning, the striving, the act of creation. The outcome is a byproduct, not the source of your fulfillment. This is the essence of what can be called effort without attachment. The practice is to regularly check in with your motivations. Are you working hard because you love the craft, or because you crave the promotion? Are you being kind to someone to get something in return, or because kindness itself is the reward? By focusing on the intrinsic value of your actions, you reclaim your happiness from the unpredictable future and anchor it firmly in the present moment. From desire, we turn to the past with the sixth principle: do not regret what you have done. Regret is a particularly insidious form of suffering because it traps us in a time machine of our own making, forcing us to relive our mistakes on an endless loop. It is a form of self-punishment that serves no purpose. Musashi, who made countless life or death decisions, understood that once a sword stroke was delivered, it was history. The only value it held was as a lesson for the next stroke. Not regretting does not mean being irresponsible or shameless. It requires immense honesty and courage to look squarely at your past actions, acknowledge the error, and extract the lesson. But after the lesson is learned, you must have the wisdom to move on. To continue dwelling on the mistake is to disrespect the lesson it taught you. The practice is to cultivate radical self-forgiveness. When a memory of a past error arises, instead of allowing your mind to spiral into self-criticism, consciously apply a three-step process. First, acknowledge, yes, I did that. It was a mistake. Second, learn. What is the valuable, unchangeable lesson I can take from this? Third, release. I have learned my lesson. I now choose to release the burden of this memory and return my focus to the present. This is not a one-time fix, but a continuous practice of gently guiding your mind away from the barren lands of the past and back to the fertile ground of the now. The seventh principle addresses another poison of the mind: never be jealous. Jealousy is the art of counting someone else's blessings instead of your own. It stems from the false belief that life is a zero-sum game, that another person's success somehow diminishes your own portion. Musashi, competing in a world of absolute winners and losers, understood that the true battle was internal. Focusing on another swordsman's skill was a distraction from honing his own. In the age of social media, jealousy has become an epidemic. We are constantly comparing our raw, unedited lives with the perfectly curated highlight reels of others, a comparison that we are guaranteed to lose. The antidote is to transmute jealousy into inspiration. When you see someone who has achieved something you desire, consciously shift your mindset from "why them and not me" to "their success is proof that this is possible. What can I learn from their dedication and strategy?" Furthermore, replace comparison with gratitude. The moment you feel the sting of jealousy, pause and force yourself to mentally list 3 things you are genuinely grateful for in your own life. This simple act short-circuits the scarcity mindset of jealousy and reconnects you with the abundance already present in your own unique journey. Next, Musashi teaches us to never let yourself be saddened by a separation. As a wandering ronin, Musashi's life was a constant series of encounters and farewells. He deeply understood a fundamental law of the universe: all things are impermanent. This principle does not ask us to be unfeeling in the face of loss. Grief is a natural and necessary part of the human experience. But Musashi warns us not to let ourselves be saddened, which implies a shift from a temporary feeling to a permanent identity. There is a vast difference between feeling sad and becoming a sad person. When we cling to what is gone, a relationship, a loved one, a past version of ourselves, we are fighting against the fundamental nature of reality. This clinging is what transforms the clean pain of grief into the murky, prolonged suffering of non-acceptance. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means cherishing the memory, being grateful for the time we shared, and allowing ourselves to fully re-engage with the life that is still here, in front of us. The practice is to cultivate a mindful awareness of impermanence in everyday life. Notice how clouds form and dissipate, how seasons change, how thoughts arise and pass away in your own mind. By familiarizing yourself with the transient nature of all things, you build the resilience to navigate the major separations of life with more grace and less resistance. The 9th principle states that resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself nor others. Resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Complaining is like watering weeds in the garden of your mind. Both are acts of self-sabotage that trap us in a cycle of negativity and victimhood. Musashi knew that in a duel, resenting your opponent or complaining about the weather was a fatal distraction. When we hold on to resentment, we are allowing a past event to continue to wield power over our present emotional state. When we complain, we are reinforcing a narrative of helplessness. The practice is to become an alchemist of energy. When you feel the urge to complain, pause and ask yourself a powerful question. What is this feeling asking me to do? Often, the energy of dissatisfaction is a signal that a boundary needs to be set, a difficult conversation needs to be had, or a change in circumstances needs to be initiated. Instead of dissipating that energy through fruitless complaining, channel it into constructive action. Transform the energy of what you don't want into the fuel to create what you do want. The 10th principle is easily misunderstood. Do not be guided by the way of love and lust. This is not a call for celibacy or a rejection of human connection. It is a profound warning against abdicating your own sovereignty. Love and lust, in their most potent forms, can be intoxicating. They can create a powerful gravitational pull that warps our judgment and causes us to deviate from our own true north. Musashi is not saying to avoid love, but to avoid becoming a satellite orbiting another person's world. The way is your own life's purpose, your own path of self-cultivation. When you make another person the sole source of your happiness or the sole determinant of your decisions, you have lost the way. The practice is to cultivate a strong center of gravity within yourself. Before seeking a partner to complete you, strive to become a whole person on your own. Nurture your own friendships, pursue your own interests, and define your own values. A healthy relationship is not one of fusion, where two halves make a whole, but one of resonance, where two whole individuals walk parallel paths, supporting and enhancing each other's journey without losing themselves. In the 11th principle, Musashi advises, "In all things, have no preferences." This is a radical call for mental flexibility and freedom from the self-imposed prisons of our own tastes. Preferences here refers not just to liking one food over another, but to the rigid mental models we create. I am a morning person. I hate public speaking. Things must be done this way. Each of these preferences, while seemingly harmless, builds a wall around our potential. It limits our ability to adapt and thrive in a world that is inherently unpredictable. Musashi, who revolutionized swordsmanship by refusing to be bound by the preferences of a single style, understood that rigidity is the enemy of mastery. A mind without preference is like water. It can adapt to any container, flow around any obstacle. To practice this, intentionally and playfully challenge your own self-definitions. If you believe you're not a creative person, spend an afternoon trying to paint. If you hate a certain type of music, listen to an entire album with an open mind. This isn't about forcing yourself to like everything. It's about dissolving the rigid walls of the ego and discovering a more fluid, resilient, and expansive version of yourself. The 12th principle is to be indifferent to where you live. This is not an instruction to neglect your home, but a deep insight into the true source of peace. Many of us suffer from what could be called locational happiness syndrome, the belief that our inner turmoil can be solved by an external change of scenery. If only I lived by the ocean, we think, then I would be calm. But wherever you go, you take your mind with you. A restless mind will find anxiety in a tropical paradise, while a peaceful mind can find serenity in a bustling city. Musashi, a perpetual wanderer, learned that the only true home is the one you build within yourself. This inner home is constructed from self-awareness, emotional resilience, and a consistent set of values. It is a portable sanctuary that you carry with you at all times. The practice is to shift your focus from curating the perfect external environment to cultivating a stable internal one. Instead of endlessly scrolling through real estate listings for your dream home, spend that time in meditation, journaling, or engaging in activities that bring you a sense of inner alignment. When you are truly at home within yourself, you will find that you can be at peace anywhere. Next, Musashi advises us to not pursue the taste of good food. This is not a call for a life of bland sustenance. It is a call to reclaim our relationship with food from the grips of emotional eating and sensory addiction. In modern society, food is often used as a drug, a way to soothe anxiety, celebrate victories, or numb boredom. We are conditioned to constantly seek novel and intense flavors, a pursuit that often leads to unhealthy choices and a disconnection from our body's true needs. To not pursue the taste means to approach eating as an act of nourishment, not just entertainment. It means learning to listen to the subtle signals of your body's hunger and satiety rather than the loud demands of your cravings. The practice is to engage in mindful eating. Before you eat, take a moment to pause and express gratitude for the food. As you eat, slow down. Put your fork down between bites. Try to identify the individual ingredients and flavors. Notice how your body feels as you eat. This practice transforms eating from an unconscious act of consumption into a conscious act of self-care, rebuilding a healthy and respectful dialogue with your body. The 14th principle is a timeless lesson in minimalism. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. For a wandering swordsman, traveling light was a matter of survival. For us, it is a matter of mental and spiritual freedom. We have a tendency to accumulate, telling ourselves, I might need this someday. But every object we own doesn't just take up physical space, it takes up a small piece of our mental bandwidth. The unworn clothes in the closet, the unread books on the shelf, the unused gadgets in the drawer, they all represent deferred decisions and a subtle tie to the past. Letting go of these unnecessary possessions is a deeply liberating act. It is a declaration that your security and identity are not tied to your material wealth. It creates a sense of lightness and clarity, both in your home and in your mind. The practice is to regularly audit your belongings. Pick up an object and ask not just, do I need this, but does this support the person I want to become? Let go of anything that represents a past self you have outgrown or a future self you no longer aspire to be. The 15th principle is a call to independent thinking. Do not act following customary beliefs. Musashi was a rule breaker. He sought the most effective path, not the most conventional one. Every society has its customary beliefs, unwritten rules about what a successful life, a good relationship, or a respectable career should look like. Many of us follow these pre-paved roads without ever stopping to ask, is this path truly my own, or am I simply walking where I was told to walk? To go against customary beliefs requires immense courage. It often means disappointing the expectations of others and facing the uncertainty of forging your own path. But the reward is a life of authenticity, a life that is a true expression of your own unique values and spirit. The practice is to become a gentle interrogator of your own life. For each major choice you've made, ask yourself, why did I choose this? Was it out of genuine desire, or was it out of a fear of being different? This is not about judging your past choices, but about bringing awareness to them so that your future choices can be more conscious and more true. The 16th principle warns us to not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. For Musashi, a weapon was a tool with a specific purpose. Amassing a collection of exotic swords he couldn't wield effectively was a foolish vanity. In our modern context, weapons can be a metaphor for skills, knowledge, and even productivity tools. This principle warns us against the shiny object syndrome, the tendency to constantly chase new trends, download new apps, and enroll in new courses without ever achieving mastery in anything. We become collectors of information instead of practitioners of wisdom. Mastery comes from depth, not breadth. It is better to be a master of one useful skill than a novice in a dozen. The practice is to apply skill minimalism. Identify the one or two skills that, if mastered, would have the most significant positive impact on your life or work. Then commit to a path of deep, deliberate practice. Say no to the endless stream of distractions and novelties. Go deep instead of wide. Remember, knowledge only becomes power when it is forged into skill through consistent, focused application. The 17th principle is the pinnacle of the warrior's philosophy. Do not fear death. A samurai entered a duel having already accepted his own death. When the fear of death is removed, the mind becomes completely free, sharp, and focused. For us, this principle is about living fully. It is the fear of our own mortality that often causes us to live timidly. We postpone our dreams, we silence our truths, we avoid risks, all in an attempt to prolong a life that we are not fully living. It is only when we fully accept the reality of our finite existence that we truly begin to live. The awareness of death does not make life morbid, it makes it precious. Every day, every moment, becomes an unrepeatable gift. The practice is the ancient Roman philosophy of memento mori, remember you will die. This is not an abstract concept, but a daily practice. Each morning, ask yourself, if I knew this were my last day on earth, how would I live it? What trivialities would I let go of? What important words would I say? The answer is a powerful compass that helps you distinguish between the urgent and the truly important. The 18th principle runs counter to our modern obsession with retirement. Do not seek to possess either goods or fiefs for your old age. Musashi is not saying that preparing for the future is wrong. He is speaking against the attachment to material security as the ultimate goal of life. Many people spend their entire youth accumulating wealth, hoping to one day enjoy it, but they trade the concrete reality of their present vitality for an abstract, uncertain future. Musashi believed that true security comes not from external possessions, but from internal strength, from adaptability, skill, and a calm mind. A person with such strength can thrive in any circumstance. The practice is to shift your mindset from accumulation to experience. While it is wise to be prudent, also consciously invest in things that create memory dividends, experiences that will continue to enrich your life for years to come. Invest in your health, your relationships, your learning, and your adventures. Find the balance between building a secure future and living a rich present. The 19th principle is a powerful declaration of self-reliance. Respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help. Musashi respected spiritual traditions, but he did not believe in passive prayer and waiting for divine intervention. He believed the path to salvation lay in one's own hands. To respect the gods means to acknowledge a higher order, which brings humility. But to not count on their help means that you are the captain of your own ship. You cannot outsource your life's challenges to a higher power. This is the difference between faith as a source of strength and faith as a form of spiritual bypassing. The practice is to pray with your actions. Instead of just praying for good health, eat well and exercise. Instead of just praying for success, do the work with excellence and integrity. Trust in your own efforts and see any external grace as a welcome bonus, not a prerequisite for action. The 20th principle speaks to a core value. You may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor. For a samurai, honor was more valuable than life itself. Honor, in this context, is not about external reputation. It is integrity, adherence to one's own code of principles, even at great personal cost. To abandon your body means to be willing to face death. But to preserve your honor means that there are some lines you will never cross, acts of cowardice or betrayal. In the modern world, we can translate honor to integrity. It is the state of being whole and undivided, where your actions consistently align with your deepest values. The practice is to define your non-negotiable values. What are the 1 or 2 principles that you would refuse to violate, even if it cost you a job, a relationship, or your comfort? Write them down. Let them be the law of your life. When faced with a difficult choice, choose the path of integrity over the path of convenience, always. And the final principle is a lifelong vow of commitment. Never stray from the way. The way is the entire philosophy of life that Musashi has laid out, the path of self-mastery, mindfulness, humility, and courage. It is also your own personal path of truth and growth. There will be countless temptations and distractions. There will be times of fatigue and doubt. This principle is Musashi's oath to himself. No matter what happens, he will never give up on his training. Every day is a new opportunity to walk the way. The practice is to make this a daily commitment. Have a daily check-in with yourself. How well did I walk the way today? Where did I stumble? Where can I do better tomorrow? This is not about achieving perfection, but about maintaining the intention. Be patient with yourself. You will stumble. The point is not to never fall, but to always get back up and take the next step on the way. We have just walked together through the 21 principles of the Dokkodo. It is a profound journey, challenging yet deeply illuminating. The path Miyamoto Musashi laid out is not an easy one. It demands discipline, radical self-honesty, and the courage to face the darkest corners of our own minds. The path of walking alone does not mean you must live a life of isolation. It means you must find the truth for yourself, take ultimate responsibility for your own life, and not depend on the approval or guidance of the crowd. You are the teacher, the student, and the companion on your own journey. The wisdom of the Dokkodo, written nearly 400 years ago by a swordsman, resonates with astonishing clarity in our modern world. In an age of distraction, it teaches focus. In an age of consumerism, it teaches simplicity. In an age of anxiety, it teaches inner peace. This is not a list to be memorized, but a mirror to be held up to your own life. Don't try to master all 21 principles at once. Perhaps choose just one that speaks to you right now. Meditate on it, live with it for a week, and simply observe what changes. Thank you for joining us on Mindcraft for this journey. May the teachings of Miyamoto Musashi be a guiding light on your own path to peace and freedom. Until next time, walk your path with courage.